When it comes to reviewing every Souls-like out there, or any game that features Souls-like combat, my motivation wanes with every mediocre title. Decay of Logos and Warlander are just two games that could have been great, but collapsed and faltered into obscurity. Once again, I am given a free code for Arboria, a Trolls-like, rogue-like, Souls-like. Even reading this is not very easy. Anyways, if you just want to know what I think without waiting until the end, here is a summary of my thoughts.
The artwork looks pretty cool, and the music is alright, so maybe this will actually be a hidden gem. Oh please, let it be good. Oh my god. Oh my god! It's actually good! Pretty good.
Now if you want to know why, here's the review. Unlike the Altered Lands, which is a game I reviewed a couple weeks ago, this actually offers controller support, which is how I prefer to play my Souls-likes. Thankfully, you can switch from mouse and keyboard pretty seamlessly, and I usually use that when navigating menus. So the beginning of the game starts with some sort of troll ritual. A rebellious and rapscallion troll ends up disrespecting the gods with a Z by taking a whiz on some sacred altars. The old wise man of the village prays for a warrior in order to journey through Dune and stop him. I'm going to leave it at that since I went into this game as blind as possible from a story perspective, which helped to make it much more enjoyable as a result. Overall, the narrative exists as there are a ton of items to find regarding its lore and world building along the way with a few twists. The game also doesn't take itself too seriously, which definitely helps with the more humorous moments throughout. Before each run, you'll have a chance to pick which troll you'll be the one playing as. Each differs regarding its starting stats, traits, and weapon proficiencies. The happier the gods are, the better the trolls will be to pick from. More on that system later. Once you're ready to delve deep into Dunar, you're given a little ceremony to celebrate your descension into the unknown, and you're off to the races. This is where a majority of the game takes place, which are basically procedurally generated dungeons. Overall, the game does a great job mixing it up, giving you plenty of reasons to explore. And that is really a big part of the game, but before I get into that, let's talk about the combat. As mentioned before, this is a Souls-like, so controller is recommended. You have your basic attacks and alternate attacks that can be chained together to perform combos. You also have your dedicated dodge button, which could either be a quick step or a roll. The biggest difference from other Souls-like is the lack of any stamina bar, which honestly is great for a game like this. This game is far more about momentum and keeping the pace up. You also don't have to deal with crappy AI tracking that a lot of these indie games seem to have for some reason. Simply put, it just feels damn satisfying to kill things. There's also a wide variety of enemies to deal with. Early on, you'll stick with bugs and various insects, but then eventually run into reptiles, strange abominations, and even freaking robots. Like I said, this game doesn't take itself too seriously, so don't be surprised with how crazy things can get. However, things never get straight up goofy or incoherent, which is a huge plus for me. And with a wide variety of enemies, you'll have a wide variety of weapons to deal with them. Many of them are very creative and enjoyable to use, such as the whip, scythe, and halberd. All have unique properties and combos to discover. You also have mutations which act as your offhand weapon. These can be some basic ones like a shield to something more awesome like telekinesis. These use mana points which can regenerate from using your main weapon and from passive regeneration. There's also one-time use weapons like grenades and the like, as well as elements system that is crucial to get to know. All these options add for a pretty awesome and satisfying experience. As expected, you'll eventually run into a main boss. The first one I ran into was a spider queen that I took out in quick succession. Honestly, the bosses in this game are very easy to deal with. I've died plenty of times in this game, but never to one of these bosses. I find this due to the fact that there is no stamina bar, as previously mentioned, and for how easy it is to telegraph their strikes. If there is some ultimate form in the New Game Plus, I wouldn't know, unfortunately. I haven't gotten there yet. For the exploration aspect, this is key for both current and future runs. Thankfully, you're given a map to track where you have been and possible secrets to find. One thing you'll need to be mindful are of the affected routes. These you can clear out by defeating all the enemies that spawn there. Restoring routes will allow upgrades to be purchased for future runs at the village. More on that later. There's even some that offer you interesting side quests that can give you some awesome loot or even permanently increase your attributes for the run. These are definitely important if you're looking for any sort of success. When you clear a level, you can upgrade your character by increasing one attribute and granting them a mod. Mods are basically perks in this game, and many of them are very useful. This is also where you can dispose of your Veri, which are basically currency in this world. back to the village. The Very is used to upgrade the village and whatnot, but once again, more on that later. If you've beaten certain levels before and want to start later instead of going through the same levels again, you can do so with these elevators. One thing I really appreciate is that you don't lose out on upgrades, so you never feel like you're missing out by jumping too far ahead. It's honestly something I like that helps prevent late game repetition. Inevitably, you will die and get taken back to the village. Depending on how good you did for your run will determine the mood of the gods. The better you do, the happier they will be, granting you some bonuses for your next run. I like this mechanic because it prevents the player from wasting runs and gives a huge incentive to outperform their previous ones. With how many routes you have cured and how much Very you have acquired will determine the upgrades available to purchase, and my goodness, there are a crap ton of them. You will also unlock new buildings as well, which just adds to more and more options and more ways to prepare yourself in future runs. It's also just pretty cool seeing your village being restored and the various characters that inhabit them. For such a small team, the production values are insane. The use of lighting and colors are just awesome. It gives every level its own unique flair, even with repeat playthroughs. Even the animations for the cutscenes are pretty good, although I do feel some lack in the sound department. Speaking of audio, there isn't much in terms of music, but what is there definitely works. The music at the village especially is very relaxing and helps to create a nice calm before the storm vibe. Certain segments throughout your journey will have battle music, which definitely helps with the atmosphere. For the most part, however, you'll need to rely on ambient sounds, which there are a decent amount of, but nothing too spectacular. I also just love how charming everything is. Meeting the various characters in the village is very entertaining. Because of that, you genuinely want to see your village of trolls succeed and celebrate by the end of it. The voice acting as well is pretty top notch, which is even rarer for an indie studio. Even the fairy that follows you around has a good voice and doesn't get annoying with all the random quips. Speaking of the fairy, one of my favorite moments is when you're eating at the bonfire before your next dive. The fairy will recount stories of your previous runs. That alone is such a nice touch and just goes to show you the attention to detail this game provides. It just adds so much more vibrancy to this world. Now, for as good as this game is and as much as I will recommend it, there are some caveats that need to be addressed. The first being glitches. At times, the AI would just become brain dead and not react to you wailing on them. This doesn't happen all the time, but it does become noticeable, especially for the reptilian enemies for some reason. The next is the fact that there's currently no multiplayer option, nor are there any plans for it. This was basically confirmed at a developer on Steam, mainly due to the amount of programming and balancing it would take. Considering this is coming from an indie studio that has already provided so much content within this game, I can respect their decision. However, I can't help but feel what could have been going through the dungeons with a close friend of mine. Maybe a split screen option could be a compromise? Who knows? Overall, I had an amazing time with this title and was genuinely surprised by it. Honestly, never even heard of this game before I got it, which I'm once again thankful for. The combat is flipping fantastic, the world and charm of it is awesome, and the roguelike elements are well done here. I just wish this game had multiplayer and was a tad more polished. Other than that, I highly recommend it, especially if you're fans of Souls-likes and roguelites and maybe Trolls-likes. Either way, thank you all for watching, and this is Powerhouse, signing off.